Welcome to our Egyptian Heritage Month series, where we're shining a light on inspiring voices in our community here in Canada. I'm excited to start things off with our wonderful guests, Carolyn and Marcus. Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Marcus.
Hi, Rowan.
It's nice having you for our first episode here, and I'm very excited to hear your voices and see what you guys have to share with our community here in Canada. Before we get things started, do you want to introduce yourselves and tell us all about your journey here in Canada?
Sure. I'm an associate professor at Carleton University, where for the last 10 years, I've been teaching a lot of wonderful things like the introduction to musics of the Middle East. So I spend a lot of time talking about Egypt and Egyptian heritage and music and sometimes food, because it's always fun to talk about food. So that's what I do.
And I moved to the US and then Canada, and I work at a local community health center. I'm a proud ex-pharmacist. I don't work as a pharmacist anymore, but I now help newcomers and immigrants navigate the health system, and also help other Arabic-speaking communities get accurate information. And I also make online spaces for Arabic and racialized folks to feel more grounded in their heritage and connect with other multicultural communities.
Wow, it seems like both of you are within your careers are doing things that are still kind of in touch with the Egyptian community and the Egyptian heritage. You did mention food though, and I can't not ask, what's your favorite Egyptian meal or food?
Well, this weekend, we just made molokhaya arenib for the first time. The arenib was the first one, but I make a really mean molokhaya.
Yes, she does.
And the reason I'm proud of that is because I mostly grew up between Canada and the United States and really had to learn it from my mom. And so between the two of us, the person who grew up in Egypt and the person who grew up here, I'm the one who sort of carries a lot of the traditional recipes. And molokhaya is sort of what I'm known for among my friends.
Oh, wow.
So this weekend was a delicious meal.
That's why I'm wearing that shirt. أنا بحب الملوخية.
So I'm guessing molokhaya is your favorite too?
Of course, it has to be.
I'm kidding.
Carolyn's molokhaya specifically?
Yeah.
But Egyptian food in general, I think Egyptian food is like one thing that we can share it with other Egyptian peers, but also we can introduce it to other folks in this like very diverse communities that we live in Canada. And it's a major thing that we need to continue doing as Egyptian immigrants.
Okay, nice. And as Egyptian Canadians, I assume you both identify as Egyptian Canadians. What's something that you're most proud of?
There's so much to be proud of. I think the first thing I'm really deeply proud of is Egyptian warmth and hospitality. Like, I think Egyptians as a community are sort of, when I talk a lot about the music culture that we own, the kind of humor that I have to teach students about, like students are really laughing, and not just laughing, able to understand hard conversations, because Egyptians are open and inviting to conversation, which that's something that makes me proud. I also am proud of belonging to such a rich and abundant cultural heritage. We have two boys, and we tell them this all the time. Look at what our ancestors did, and look at how the story continues in diaspora. That we've added another layer because that's what our ancestors have always done. They take on a new language, then if they need to sort of change something, they do. And now we're Egyptian and Canadian at the same time. I'm proud of both of them. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, like to build on Carolyn's perspective, I'm really proud of my Coptic-Egyptian tradition, where I grew up learning all these like indigenous ancestral hymns that we have been singing for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this is how I identify as a singer. Yes, sometimes people, when they sing at the church, they think that it's a different kind of singing, and it is like, but when we move here to Canada and we see other indigenous communities are really proud of their indigenous heritage and singing and their music, I'm so proud of that part of myself, and I like to teach it to my kids and actually share it with other communities who sing similarly, whether that's like other Middle Eastern communities or other indigenous communities that live in Canada.
All right, so it seems, I guess, both of you are not just sharing your traditions within your family or with your kids, but also within the wider community. And since we're in July and it is the Egyptian Heritage Month, I can't not ask, what does this month mean to you, and how does it affect you, your family, and the community around you?
I think when I saw that since the proposal of that putting it into law, and I got so excited because like it has always been like seeing why other communities have Heritage Months and we don't. And with that new launching of the Egyptian Heritage Month, it's really nice to see us included in the civic life of Canada. And this is also part of my day job. Is like I'm always thinking of how immigrant communities can be more engaged in the civic life, and it's really nice to have this. And I encourage all Egyptians to participate, and in all in their own ways. It doesn't also have to be the official organized either through ECAO or other Egyptian organization, but let us remember other things of like within our families to share within our communities, and let's get more Egyptians to get together outside of the formal places, not just inside churches, not just inside mosques, but let's get more together and get to know each other. I got to know more Egyptians outside of churches in Canada more than in Egypt. So I'm excited about this.
For me, I think I grew up mostly between upstate New York and Toronto. And in the 90s, without giving away my age, there was no representation of Egyptian culture and heritage outside of my own family. And I'm realizing just how important it is to have that kind of representation. So when my boys see commercials for Masraoui and Mississauga and they recognize that Molokhia, they're like, oh my God, Mama, you make this stuff. So it makes me feel like, you know, for us to have that kind of public visibility, you know, students walk away from my class listening to Egyptian music. They walk away knowing what mahraganat are. I know we sort of laugh. They know who karaoke is. And so it makes me feel like I'm sharing something that I'm proud of, and it makes me more proud. And importantly, I feel like, you know, for my children who are growing up now, you know, to see themselves in the fabric of their lives is to help them feel both more Egyptian and more Canadian. So a month like this, I think, just confirms not just the kind of private pride that we have, but it makes it public. It says to everyone around us, look at what we have, but also look at what we also share and want to share with, you know, the communities that we live with, we make our lives with. We feed Molokhia too, because not everyone at our table this weekend was Egyptian. So we had to introduce, by the way, this is the national Egyptian dish. But it was a friend of ours who brought the like Aish Shamsi. And she's not even Egyptian. So we asked, you know, can you help us make this? Sharing is such a key part of who we are. So to be able to do that for so publicly, I think in a month like this is a real privilege. It's a joy.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear. And I think you're both talking about sharing a sense of inclusivity within the community, right? And maintaining the diversity that we do have access to here in Canada. It's really cool to see, well, both of you doing this within your work and your personal lives, but also living that through communities or organizations like ECAO or the Egyptian Student Associations at the universities here in Ottawa as well, or in Toronto. So that's really cool to see. All right, so you both kind of shined a light on your success and your professional lives. What is your secret sauce? What kind of advice would you share with the Tasha?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think for the both of us, it's being open. It's being open to living with our tradition, sharing our tradition, and sometimes tweaking our traditions. Like I think as part of diaspora, you grow up kind of mixed. Like if I spoke in Arabic now, you'd be able to hear the mix of English and you'd be able to hear the mix of Egyptian Arabic, which is itself mixed, which is what I tell students. Like in one sentence, I will evoke an English, an Italian, a Coptic, an Arabic word. And that's Egyptian Masri. That's what it sounds like. I feel like in the spirit of continuing that tradition, part of diaspora living is not being so afraid of change, because change is coming. And so I think the secret sauce is being able to know who we are, being comfortable in our skin, and being able, like, comfortable trying something new in our skin, because that's what we have to pass on. Like fikrit taslim, this idea of passing something on to our children specifically, is first be comfortable in your skin, and then be comfortable trying something new. Be brave.
I think my secret sauce too, added to what Carolyn mentioned, as a person who had to be flexible and redefine my skills, as somebody who um, lived a professional life in Egypt and had to transition into another professional life in Canada. I had to, like, I would just recommend for folks to be open to new ideas, to think outside of the box. Usually, folks like as folks in healthcare, like, they just have just one career path to be pharmacists or just to be physicians or engineers, but there are so many options here in Canada. And yes, while peer advice can be helpful, but also look at other advice from other folks outside of our Egyptian community. We are so helpful, and we like to connect each other and put ourselves into the success path. But also, other people from other communities have their own ideas, maybe that could be new to you, but be open to these new ideas. Connect with other cultures and see how they succeed, how they root themselves into their own cultures, into their own food, and how they find fulfillment in each other. So yeah, and get access to quality information, to know your way, and instead of just like getting information from peers or folks that you are comfortable with.
It's nice to hear that both of you are agreeing on being open-minded to newness, right? Being open-minded to trying new things, and while still exploring and maintaining your Egyptian heritage. So that's really nice to hear. My final question for you both is, how would you promote your culture and your heritage, or continue promoting it here in Canada?
I can go first.
Yeah.
I mean, I often do that already through the kind of teaching and writing that I do as a professor. And I think, given our times, even just given the kind of moments in which people are really curious about our culture, sometimes they're miseducated about who we are. And, are sort of questioning. I think the idea of opening up conversations, and often conversations with people who are very different from you. And I regularly do that when I teach. I sort of have to walk in, explain who I am, and then take a minute to say, it's pretty extraordinary, especially in a context where back home in Egypt, it would have been difficult to find an Egyptian Coptic woman professor. And in a place like Canada, an Egyptian Coptic woman professor is possible. And having a conversation means that people get an insight into my perspective, and I get an insight into theirs. And the way that I do it is by using my cultural heritage to say, let's chat about what it is to be together in this new space and to create home in this new space, while never forgetting where we come from, because we're proud of where we come from. Everyone in this room is proud of where we come from. I happen to be proud of coming from Egypt. I'm proud of being a Copt. And here's why. And then that opens up the channels for people to share their perspective, and I share mine. And suddenly the room is full of stories. And that part is my favorite part of teaching, and my favorite part of talking about who I am, who my community is, who my ancestors are, who my children one day will be. So I feel like in just sort of day-to-day life, just by being open to conversation, I think we are already promoting who we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. Being open to, or not being afraid to have difficult conversations with the wider community here in Canada.
I create online spaces to get into these difficult conversations and dispel myths about what is it being an Egyptian, Coptic, a Middle Eastern. And you can do these things by just maybe wearing a shirt, or like you would start a conversation around like, oh, people would ask you, what does that say? And you start a conversation maybe about food, and or you start a conversation about your culture and the languages that you speak and the nuances, like being a Middle Eastern Christian. Many people actually we don't know that Christians in the Middle East exist, and the connection with religion and indigeneity, and all these conversations that would dispel myths about the stereotypical idea of what is a Middle Eastern, especially a Middle Eastern man too. We have a lot more than the stereotypes that some medias have. I would also encourage people to connect with other organizations to broaden their perspective, maybe by volunteering. We can connect with so many communities. As proud Egyptians, we connect with Middle Easterners, Arabs, Arabic-speaking, Mediterraneans, North Africans. The world is our oyster. We are at the heart of the world, and we need to use this because we are here in Canada.
So that's really nice to hear, and I do want to hear your stories about some of the art pieces you guys brought in today and see how they speak to the Egyptian heritage in celebration of this month.
Sure. I think we'll start with this piece that Marcus brought back from Egypt when he was visiting. I think it was the first time he went back. And it's important to say it wasn't commissioned to look after us. It was not.
It does look like it was.
It does look like us a little bit. But I think it really nicely captures a little bit of about how we both not just came into knowing Egypt, but each other. And so, it's sort of the mustache is sort of there and the traditional hair. But when I went to Egypt to do research for my PhD, I went there as a diaspora kid. I was Egyptian Canadian and Egyptian American, and my Arabic was pretty bad. But I went there to learn about my heritage and to learn about Coptic music. And when I went there, it was such a beautiful homecoming. Parts of it were really hard, but parts of it, to get to like drink, sugarcane juice for the first time, I was like, I get it. This is why they call this place Omedonia.
Yeah.
But when I found a lot of this folk art, I remember seeing myself in it and being really moved. And so thinking like, it really helped me to come to know myself better, to know my family better, to know my community better. And so to see myself in something like this, it made me laugh, especially when it was sort of a coincidence.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the story of this piece.
Painting is very much you, you in a picture. And I see we have another wonderful piece here.
Yeah, actually, this piece, I just asked my dad to send it to me. I was at a Ukrainian arts exhibit, and I saw them doing similar art with straw. So this is actually a straw art. And when I saw it at the Ukrainian exhibit, I told the curator, "Oh, my dad used to do this. We Egyptians do this kind of art because we like." Folks on the farms, they have a lot of straws, so they dry it and they flatten it and they make art pieces with them. So, and I told them, oh, why don't we maybe make an exhibit in the future, like with Egyptian, Coptic, and Ukrainians with the same art. So yeah, my dad, when he was young, used to like going to visits to. We are from Monofea, so going to the village visits every few weeks, he would get the straws and work with them. He learned how to do that. And we have a lot of. I grew up in my family home, my grandparents' home, and seeing a lot of these art pieces, whether for saints or whether for other art pieces, or even for people to ornament other pieces. So yeah, I'm having it and I'm cherishing it at my household, so my kids can see it too.
Yeah, the level of detail on this piece, I don't know if it's going to be visible on camera, but it is insane how shiny and detailed and all like the different nooks and crannies. It's really cool to see a piece handed down to you by your family or your father. And yeah. Carolyn and Marcus, thank you both for joining us on our first episode. It was wonderful having you and hearing all your thoughts and insights. Do you have any last words for our guests that are listening into the Egyptian Heritage Month series?
Eat more molokhia.
That is wonderful advice.
Eat more molokhia.
All right. It was nice having you both. Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all for joining us on our first episode of the Egyptian Heritage Month series.